Evening guys, welcome to another devotional. Today we're going to be in Proverbs chapter 11 verse 2, which says, "Pride leads to disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom." Now, have you ever been in a room where, there's a group of you discussing something, and then all of a sudden someone speaks up and they start to, very boldly talk about the subject, but clearly they know nothing about it, and that they're spewing absolute rubbish. Have you ever been in a room like that? And now, chances are, probably you have, and if you haven't, there's the chance that you may have been one of those people doing that. And it reminds me of, this verse, and that instant reminds me of a time when I was in a conversation with a bunch of IT guys, and I was with these IT guys, they're a good deal older than me. They've been doing IT since long before I was born, decades before I was born. And so they have seen the huge shift in everything, the huge shift in IT, and all the new things. They get to see all the brand new things, and they understand exactly how they all work. And I was sat listening to these guys talk, just sitting there listening, saying, hey, I can't necessarily contribute meaningfully to this conversation, but I can quite happily listen and learn to see what these guys are talking about and gain some understanding from that. Now, as I'm sitting listening to these guys talk, there's another guy there who hasn't really spoken much, but clearly he wants in on the conversation. Then all of a sudden, this guy kind of jumps up and he addresses one guy in particular, and he starts trying to correct this guy, telling him how he's wrong. And then all of a sudden, I realized, and everyone else realized, his grave mistake when the room fell silent. Then the guy who was being addressed, who was apparently being corrected, just calmly addressed his complaint or his correction and told him effectively that he didn't know what he was talking about, and if he wanted to contribute meaningfully, please do so, but otherwise, why are you even here? Those were a lot of words to that effect, and the guy was left disgraced effectively. But he was disgraced not because he was trying to do something right. He was disgraced because of his own pride. He allowed that to get in the way, and then all of a sudden he realized, I'm building a house that has come toppling down on top of me. The man spoke in pride, and so he was left disgraced. And I was very happy at that point not to have gotten involved at all. One, I realized, okay, cool, I'm glad I had shut my mouth and not gotten involved. I didn't want to have been spoken to like that. And two, I just got to sit back and learn a bunch of things that these guys were talking about. Now, I don't always fit into that category of the person who stays quiet and doesn't, join into a conversation or whatever. I don't always fit into that. Sometimes there are times when I think, oh yeah, I've got something meaningful to say, and realize I really shouldn't have said that. That was me thinking I knew, when really I didn't know, and I probably should have just stayed quiet. And sometimes then it's important, or really all the time, it's for us to, at those points, check ourselves and say, hang on a minute, why am I going to speak up, or why am I going to do this or do that? Is it because of pride, or am I doing it because, it's genuine, it needs to get done? It's important for all of us to check ourselves, to recognize then, hey, my pride is rising up here, I need to put that in check, and instead choose the path of wisdom, which is humility, rather than choosing to elevate myself and or defend myself in a position of pride. Because at that point, once we're acting in pride, what's left for us is disgrace. Because we're building our house on the sand. We're building our house on something that is going to fall apart, because we're the builder who doesn't really know what we're building. We're building it out of our own pride, rather than sitting in humility, gaining in wisdom to then act in that wisdom rather than acting in pride. So where humility will lead us to wisdom, to then act, pride will actually lead us to disgrace, where we're acting before we really should be. We're not acting in wisdom, we're acting in pride. And the Lord will allow us to be disgraced when we're acting in pride. Because then not only are we left disgraced, but often we then miss out on the wisdom that we could have gained if we'd have just stayed quiet, if we'd have just acted in humility in whatever situation it was. So I want to encourage each and every one of us to walk in humility, to walk that path of humility, and in that instance to then be able to grow in wisdom. That if we seek to grow in wisdom, let's walk in humility, because that's where we're going to grow in wisdom. And thus, doing that, we're going to escape the destruction that pride will bring. We're going to escape as it puts it very plainly, the disgrace that pride leads to. So I just want to encourage each and every one of us in that tonight. God bless you guys.